Today, we launch the National Black Church Initiative Do Not Text While You Driving program. All over the country, African American congregations will gather their young people to launch programs against texting and driving. 32,000 of our young people every year are killed because they attempt to text while driving. It's a fatal move. What we're trying to do is understand the psychology why our young people decide they need to text and why it cannot wait. We have two distinguished clinical psychologists, and we will talk about all the aspects of why our young people attempt to text and drive when they know it is dead. Good evening. My name is Reverend Anthony Evans, and I'm president of the National Black Church Initiative. And I'm here today to launch the National Black Church Initiative Teen Texting and Driving Program. This program is entitled Do Not Text While You're Driving Initiative. This falls under the National Black Church Initiative, Health Emergency Declaration, and our Educational Initiative. We hope that you will learn something today because we are going to delve very deeply into the psychological aspects of why our young people text and drive. The point of this program is to help prevent 32,000 deaths a year that occurs throughout the United States. But before we talk to them, let me tell you how this program is going to work. If you are a part of an African American church, church in general, a Christian church in general, and you'd like to be a part of this great movement that is going across America, please go to our website, ttandd.com. Let me repeat that again, ttandd.com. In that website, you will have an opportunity to sign up as a church, as a group of young people, to create projects for your other young people or for your church community in preventing these young people from dying while they're driving and texting. This is a great movement. We hope that you will be a part of it. And if you cannot remember that, please remember our major website, www.naldblackchurch.com. And you will be able to access from one of our core programming that particular website so that your team and your church can become involved. Today, we are very happy to welcome two of our guests, two distinguished African American clinical psychologists who are going to discuss the psychological aspects of why our teens text and drive. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Diane Kern. And Diane's going to give us her background, and Dr. Samuel Gordon. Welcome to the National Black Church Initiative discussion forum on this very important topic.
Thank you.
Very good. Let's get right into it. Tell me who you are, tell me your association, your affiliation, and let me also say that both of you serve on the National Black Church Initiative clinical behavior team that provide psychological understanding for some of our major health initiatives. So I just wanted to get that out. So tell me who you are and give the audience some perspective on what type of psychology that you deal with in your private practice.
Well, I am a licensed clinical psychologist with a independent psychotherapy practice. Currently that's with adults primarily. However, I have an extensive background with a wide age range. I previously worked for the public school system locally, in which I had a lot of exposure to youth. And I also recently headed up a program at my own church in terms of youth outreach and helping youngsters make good decisions in terms of their life choices. So this is a concern that's deep and connected to my heart, and I'm very concerned about being on the preventive end of this. In addition to my private psychotherapy practice, I'm also the creator of Happy and Healthy You, which is a series of workshops aimed at stress management, and again, on the preventive end of helping people better manage their lives, make good decisions, and utilize what we know to be effective psychological techniques.
Okay, very good. I want to talk about a little bit more about that, your private practice on stress management. Very, very key to what we're trying to do here in the Black Church in terms of reducing stress and focusing on a well, psychological, balanced Christian lifestyle. Dr. Samuel Gordon, tell me who you are.
Okay. I too have a background with the kids going back to the DC public school system, and my training is actually in child clinical psychology. I did my internship at Children's Hospital and have always, looked at youth as the primary way in sort of affecting the health of our community, because the earlier you start, the more impact you're likely to have. Currently, I do have a small private practice in Washington, D.C., where I work with a wide range of individuals, including youth. And on my primary job, which is at the MedStar National Rehabilitation Hospital, where I've been for the last 23 years, I'm the coordinator of medical and pediatric psychology. And for those of you who don't know the MedStar National Rehabilitation Hospital, we work with individuals who have a variety of disabilities: traumatic brain injury, traumatic spinal cord injury, various kind of musculoskeletal disorders, including amputations, hip replacement, and other kind of joint replacements, individuals who have cardiac conditions. And I am, as the pediatric psychology coordinator, also co-direct the National Center for Children's Rehabilitation, where we work with youth who have various kind of disabilities. Again, that same group that I just mentioned, the spinal cord injury, the brain injury, and other acquired disabilities, as well as those who may have been born with a disability, cerebral palsy and the like. So my main focus over the last 30 years has been working with individuals with youth and individuals who have various kind of medical conditions, with a big, strong emphasis from my own personal heart of trying to decrease the incidence of those kind of conditions through education and education. I recently worked with the Washington Post in putting out an article about young men who got injured by virtue of gunshot wounds because of risky behavior. And I see, and we've also done things out in the community with youth who've kind of engaged in other risky behavior, including, let's say, not driving while texting, not driving while drunk, but in this case, diving while drunk. In other words, individuals who may engage in alcohol abuse and go out into pools and sort of do various damage to their bodies, including traumatic brain injuries and spinal cord injuries. So this whole idea of texting while driving and trying to prevent that falls into that same category, because it can result in the same devastating kind of physical conditions and psychological harm that things as gunshot wounds, right, traffic and driving and drinking can
So
have.
you deal with very, very major incidents of trauma, and they have major psychological implications to it.
Major physical and psychological, and because it tends to happen to younger individuals, these are things that affect them for all of their lives. And we're talking not only 20, we're talking about, in some cases, 40, 50 years of life.
Right, and so they have to have, you have to get them to a situation that they can cope with that. The same thing would occur, of course, when the death of a young person in the family, dealing with who had text and drive, and leaving the mother, the father, and the siblings to cope with that situation. I'm coming back to you, but let's talk about your private practice, because it very interests us in terms of the stress management part of this. There's a direct correlation between texting and driving and dealing with stress. So I just wanted to sort of piggyback on that. I know that you do not, as a private practice, deal with young people per se, because your practice is geared toward adults.
Currently.
But because of your school-based psychological jobs setting, you had great experience. So I want you to just talk in general about young people dealing with stress and how that interplay with stress, driving, and texting.
Well, one of the things that a lot of young people do not understand is how stressful driving is, first of all. Certainly those of us who are adults and depending upon, driving is stressful anyway. And certainly in this area, you know, compared to other areas of the country, this is one of the more stressful areas or geographic areas.
Well, it's just been noted
Yeah.
that this is one of the dangerous driving areas in the whole country. We like one or two, if I'm
That's
not
right.
mistaken, right?
That's right.
Right.
It's a very highly stressful because of the congestion, because of the volume of traffic, and so right off the bat we have a situation. Even if people are doing their best, it's a stressful situation to begin with.
And so that I just wanted to make sure that we can set it up. So this is talking about driving and how that brings about stress. How you already have stress, and then you mix driving into that. And this is talking about major cities like LA, Chicago, Atlanta, metropolitan area, New York, totally across the country where there's a serious concentration of young urban people where this is a behavior pattern. But I want to go back to, I'm not going to rush you, I want you to take your time with this. How would you relate that to all of that driving stress in terms of congestion, one of the top areas bad for driving, deal with stress and texting? So I want you to paint that picture for us.
Well, actually, the way I conceptualize it, so we have the stress related to driving under the normal conditions here, and then we have a situation which is finally beginning
Here or across the country?
Well, across the country anyway, and
Exactly.
especially here,
Right.
because of the nature of the congestion and the traffic demands and that are here, that are unique to here. So it adds a whole nother element to that. So that's related to the driving anyway, without any other complications. Then we have stress that really is related to our technology, this technological age. And that is finally being studied by professionals, certainly in the psychological field. We're recognizing that, certainly the benefits of technology have their consequences in terms of things being right at our fingertips, instantaneous. However, the downside of that is the same issue, is that now our expectations have changed. We want everything immediately. We want everything fast and in a hurry, even at some high risk, at the risk of some very dire consequences. And certainly we've just talked about that, those consequences. So that's one of the things that is a cause for concern for a lot of people. For instance, in my private practice, a lot of my clients have to be encouraged, and they are aware of how stressful it is to always have their BlackBerries with them, to always have their smartphones with them. And how it is that sometimes they feel as though the smartphones and the BlackBerries are controlling their lives as opposed to them being in control of the gadgets.
And that's a whole new
new
area
phenomenon.
Of
That's
science in terms of what is the proper role one should allow modern technology to impact their lives, and how that you should either make sure that you are controlling that aspect of your life, or that aspect of your life controlling you.
precisely.
And I would agree that it's not just Washington, D.C., because as you go to, and it's an interesting phenomenon with like,
it's nationwide.
Across the country, so this
and
is
so
a national concern.
if I was out in Los Angeles and San Diego earlier this year, you have the same phenomenon, and those places are just as congested, but in some cases they even have it more challenging because they're wider spread. So, Houston's
another, LA.
And they don't have a mass transportation
So they're
system,
dependent
so
on
kids
driving.
have to drive. And because of our way how society has changed, parents can't shuttle kids the way they used to. Because parents work longer hours. We have 2-parent households where both are working, so we don't have a mother who can pick them up from school. So kids get driving privileges early on. No one's going to pick them up, and they share rides and so on and so forth. And because we need to be in touch with each other, And because we have such little, because there's only 24 hours a day, but we've added more things to those days, including some kids driving longer distances in order to get to school, to get from school to a job, knowing that indeed they have more homework because, let's face it, we've become more competitive, and because when they get home there's also 200 cable channels that are competing for their interest, and they still have to do their homework. So the whole idea of saying no to a text may seem difficult because they feel I better take it now because I may not be able, won't have time when I'm not driving. So we have to figure out how to combat.
It may be very, very important to do
Correct.
it. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves because we want to talk about those crossroads. So let's back up and just take it one step at a time.
Great.
And we're going to do that. Now, the statistics say that 32,000 children, mainly young people, die every year in traffic-related deaths when some form of technology, emphasis on texting, is occurring. Let's talk about those statistics in relationship to, in the broader picture here, and I'm going to talk to you as professionals. If it's 32,000 now, and this is 2012, the projection is that number can only go up, right?
And if you add to that a statistic that's hard for us to kind of hold on to, is those individuals who don't die. Again, that's my particular emphasis. Individuals who will be in wheelchairs
so which means to say that if you say 32,000 who deaths, that could equally 100,000 who was injured as a result
because the airbag saved them from death, but didn't save them from the spinal cord injury, didn't save them from a traumatic brain injury that prevents them from being able to be as functional a citizen as they might have been otherwise.
Okay, let's go ahead, Don.
And I just wanted to piggyback then, so when we have tragic, I mean, it's tragic enough for, and you mentioned, the impact on a family to lose a young person. But think about the impact of a family now that has a young person who now needs to be cared for the next 40, 50 years because they are totally dependent on someone else now.